With Bedard, you're thinking about two things.
Yep.
If I ran the Chicago Blackhawks, I would have been at the Bedard household on Saturday morning. I would have been like, A, how's your shoulder? And B, do we have to worry about an offer sheet here at all? Because I am a super paranoid human being. And after what happened with Carlson, I would have been like, do I have anything to worry about here? I want to know right now. Now,
somewhere in Vancouver, on a quiet Thursday that was supposed to be just another day of off-season training, something went wrong. Connor Bedard, the 20-year-old face of the Chicago Blackhawks, felt a jolt in his shoulder. Nothing was confirmed. No official statement. Just whispers. And in a league where every star's health is a ticking financial time bomb, whispers are enough to make front offices sweat. But the shoulder wasn't even the biggest story brewing around Bedard. Because 3 days later, something happened that sent shockwaves through every general manager's office in the NHL. Leo Carlsson, the number 2 pick from the same draft class as Bedard, signed an offer sheet. Not just any offer sheet. 5 years, $90 million, $18 million a year. Enough to make him the highest paid player in the entire league. And he didn't sign it with his own team, the Anaheim Ducks. He signed it with the Philadelphia Flyers. In hockey, an offer sheet is like a declaration of war disguised as paperwork. It's a way for one team to reach into another team's roster, dangle a contract so enormous that the original team can barely afford to match it, and potentially walk away with a superstar. It's rare. It's aggressive. And when it lands, every rival executive starts calculating who's next. That's exactly what NHL insider Elliotte Friedman was thinking about on this week's episode of his podcast. Because sitting in Chicago right now is a player who might be even more valuable than Carlson. A player who is, at this very moment, still unsigned, still exposed, still available for another team to swoop in and steal. Connor Bedard. Friedman didn't hold back. He said if he were running the Blackhawks, he wouldn't have waited even one extra day. He would have been knocking on Bedard's door the very next morning, asking 2 questions. How is the shoulder healing? And more urgently, is there any chance someone else is circling with an offer sheet? Because here's the terrifying truth for Chicago. Bedard hasn't signed his extension yet, which means technically, legally, any team in the league could walk up right now and offer him a deal so massive that the Blackhawks will be forced into an impossible choice. Match an outrageous contract or lose the best young player their franchise has seen in a generation. Now, to be clear, there's no evidence anyone is actually doing that. Friedman himself said he has no knowledge of any rival team preparing an offer sheet for Bedard. And by all accounts, the relationship between Bedard and the Blackhawks is strong. Bedard has said again and again that he wants to build something in Chicago, that he's in it for the long haul. General Manager Kyle Davidson has echoed that same commitment, insisting he'll do whatever it takes to keep his franchise player home. But here's the thing about hockey in this new era. The salary cap is climbing faster than it ever has before. And when the cap rises, teams get bolder. They get hungrier. Suddenly the math that used to make offer sheets financially impossible starts to make sense again. Teams that once played it safe are now taking swings they never would have considered a few years ago. So even if the relationship between Bedard and Chicago is rock solid, even if there's no whisper of a rival circling, Friedman's point still lands like a gut punch. In this environment, you don't wait. You don't assume loyalty is a shield. You get the deal done before someone else forces your hand. And now, thanks to Leo Carlsson, the entire financial landscape has shifted overnight. Before Friday, everyone around the league believed there was a quiet standoff happening. 3 restricted free agents from the same draft class, Bedard, Carlson, and Columbus forward Adam Fantilli, were all waiting, watching each other, wondering who would blink first and sign, setting the market price for the other 2. Even Macklin Celebrini, San Jose's rising young star, was watching from the sidelines, knowing his own eligibility for an extension was coming next summer. Then Carlson blew the whole thing wide open. An $18 million cap hit, a number nobody expected this early, a number that instantly rewrites what every other young superstar in this draft class can demand. Before this contract, the expectation for Bedard's next deal was somewhere between $12 and $16 million a year. A big number, but a manageable one. Now, Bedard's representatives have every reason to walk into that negotiating room and point directly at Karlsson's contract and say, if he's worth $18 million, what does that make our client worth? And when you actually compare the two players, the argument gets even more powerful. Karlsson, over 201 NHL games, has put up 61 goals and 80 assists for 141 points. He's a legitimate two-way talent, coming off a career-best season with 67 points in just 70 games. Impressive. Undeniably impressive. But then look at Bedard. 219 games played, 75 goals, 128 assists, 203 points. And he's done it while surrounded by far less talent than Karlsson has had around him in Anaheim. This past season, Bedard broke 30 goals and 70 points for the very first time in his career, a milestone Karlsson still hasn't reached. Numbers don't lie, and these numbers suggest that if Karlsson is worth $18 million a year, Bedard might be worth even more. There's also something less measurable, but just as important. Loyalty, patience, character. For 3 straight seasons, Bedard has been the centerpiece of a franchise stuck in a painful rebuild. He's absorbed the losses. He's fielded the tough questions. He's stayed publicly positive, publicly committed, publicly patient, all while carrying the weight of an entire fan base's hope on his 20-year-old shoulders. He never wavered. Not once. That kind of loyalty usually earns trust. But in this business, it also earns leverage. Because Bedard now has every right to walk into Chicago's front office and say, I stayed when things were hard, and now I want to be paid like the guy Karlsson's contract just proved I already am. So Chicago finds itself trapped in a corner of its own making. Wait too long, and an offer sheet becomes a real possibility. Move too fast, and they may be forced to pay Bedard even more than they originally planned, all because of a domino that fell 3 states away in Anaheim. One offer sheet, one number, and suddenly, the entire chessboard for the NHL's brightest young stars has been flipped upside down. All eyes are locked on Chicago, waiting to see what Kyle Davidson does next.